Okay. This is collecting evidence for Unit 365, sorry, 375, which is all to do with presentation software. Rob and Sarah are present, and it's the 29th of October. Okay, Rob, so what you've done, you've put together a presentation for me, which we can use for Unit 375, but now we just need to really talk about it from the presentation software perspective, if you like, and looking at how you've actually put this presentation together. So I've given you control of my desktop, so I'm just going to minimize that. Just can you see if you can move the mouse for me? Brilliant.
Yep.
Okay. So what I want you to do is if you just take me through the first part of the presentation. So start it off from the beginning, and then I will ask you one or two questions.
Okay. Would you like me to put this into slideshow?
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay. So I guess we'll just start off the introduction here. This is also on a timer as well, and this is basically the requirements that you'll need before you begin, and it's good to set the requirements for the server that you're going to build. It's good to
Okay.
understand them.
Oh, sorry, Rob. Don't worry about what the contents is. It's really more to do with the PowerPoint.
Oh, okay, with the actual
That's
animation.
fine.
I
Okay.
see, yeah. So basically what I've done is I've set the first couple of slides onto a timer. The way that I got the times in between the slides was basically just through trial and error and just reading out what I'm going to say and just seeing roughly how long it took me to say it.
Okay.
Um, Along with that, there's meant to be a soundtrack on the background. Um, and one other feature, which is kind of clear from the beginning, is the things like the background and the matching color scheme,
Okay.
um, and
I'm
all these
just gonna
things kind of make it. Sorry.
okay. I'm just gonna press this. So let's just talk about what you've mentioned so far. So you said you put a soundtrack on it. Um, when you're putting sound to a presentation, what do you need to make sure of? Do you think?
That it is not too loud or like intense, so that it completely takes over the concentration of the viewers.
Mhm.
And that it's got to be generally quite appropriate and sort of it can be quite slow, but it's generally it's got to be appropriate and not distracting.
Okay. Now, based on this presentation, which is about installing Server 2012, do you think the music track that you've used is actually appropriate?
I can't actually hear what
Oh,
I've
can't you?
used. No, I can't actually hear that. I believe I used some sort of classical music,
Yeah.
and I'm not sure how appropriate it is. The main reason why I picked it was just because it was out of the options that I had, it was the least intense.
Okay. So let's just think about it logically. Classical music running in the background, and you're talking to me or your audience about something technical. Do you think
Yeah.
it goes with it?
Um, I don't know. I mean, generally, music in general doesn't really go with this sort of thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but
So I think you've answered the question, Rob.
no,
You,
yeah.
yeah. So you're quite right. You've just said you don't think any type of music would go with this type of presentation. Would I be right?
No. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I would say if you were to look at this um, on your own and there was no presenter,
Mhm.
I guess you could have some music which kind of just um, keeps them concentrated on the presentation as a whole. If it has like a good soundtrack or something that kind of kicks in halfway through that kind of uh, that kind of sparks your interest again.
Good. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. If and I think with many presentations, if it's something that the audience have to go through themselves, they need to read it themselves, or they just need to watch it, that track that you've actually put with this, I think it's very soothing. I think you need to be a bit careful that you don't fall asleep with it. But for me, that track was a nice soothing track to listen to, but not appropriate for this type of technical presentation. So yeah, I hear what you're saying though. Right, now, you mentioned backgrounds or designs, whatever they're called in the presentation software. It depends on the version really. Why have you chosen the design that you've used? What's important about well, let's start again. What's important about having a design in the first place? What's the
Um,
importance?
Well, I mean, for me, the importance is for it to all be uniform. If you have a uniform appearance, then it will make anything that you put inside that sort of background and border. It will make it look like it's done very professionally, and it will make it look like it's all come from the same place, as opposed to how it usually is put together, which is a piece of information from loads of different places.
If you didn't have a background, how do you think the audience might view this presentation?
If I didn't have a background, it would look a lot less professional, and it would look not so much like there's someone intelligent putting the information up, but it would look like that person doesn't belong to any sort of company or any sort of professional body that you can trust, really.
Yeah, it is all about the way your audience perceive the person putting this together. Yeah, I think I agree. Do you think that if we didn't have a background, this might be exceedingly boring and your audience might just have dozed off after the first slide?
Yeah, I feel like there is some sort of like subtle uh, sort of like interest factor as well, where like if you literally just have a plain white background and black text and no sort of variation and everything's kind of in block writing, it does just look boring, and it kind of can turn a lot of people off.
Absolutely. Okay. But what do you need to be very careful of when you do choose these backgrounds?
Well, I know that with the newer versions of PowerPoint, you can have animations going across the screen or constantly, and you can have a lot of things, creating a really sort of almost like explosive presentation. And I feel like that wouldn't really suit this because of the nature of what it is. I feel like you can put a lot far too much animation into each slide and make it confusing almost.
Yeah, it kind of detracts, doesn't it, from what the
Yeah.
presentation is. It is quite hard because you've got to strike a happy medium, but actually it is quite all about a matter of opinion, isn't it? Yeah. My
Yeah.
opinion of what you've used here is it's enough to make it look professional. I like it. I don't think it's in my face, okay? But I still think that you're getting the information over it's in a clean way. In other words, I suppose what I'm trying to say is it doesn't interfere with what you're trying to say here. Okay, you mentioned that you put a timer on the slides and you said that the way to do that was trial and error. So just tell me how you would work it out. Or also, why wouldn't you have the same time on each slide?
Well, I originally attempted to do that, and I put roughly 10 seconds on the first 5 slides.
Hmm.
And when I decided to try to test it and go through it myself, it was just completely out of time, and I felt like as if I wouldn't know when the slides would change.
Okay.
Um, and and my trial and error method was kind of really just seeing everything on the slide which I would actually say,
Hmm.
um, and reading that off at like a slow sort of rate, and seeing how long that took, and then adding another 3 or 4 seconds for any sort of other information on the screen to also be read.
Good. Excellent. Yes, because who are the slides actually for? Is it for you, the audience? Is it both? What is the point of a presentation like this?
That all the information on the actual slides is intended solely for the audience. The way I've kind of done it now, it does give me a really good handle on knowing what I meant to say when I meant to say it.
Okay.
But there will be things on there which I won't. I mean, I won't literally read the whole slide. So all the rest of the information is for the audience.
Okay. So in a way, it is a bit of a mixture because it's kind of going to prompt you, isn't it? I suppose is what you're saying there, is it?
Yeah, and it kind of lets me know what page I'm supposed to be on.
Okay, good. What was I going to ask you? Okay, so why have timings in the first place? Why not just keep using your mouse button or whatever to shift your slide?
Um, I feel like there's kind of like two things that timing helps me with personally,
Okay.
and I feel like from like one from like an audience perspective, just having timings in like every slide, and having that at a very moderate level to the point where any sort of reading ability will be able to keep up with it. It kind of allows me to give a more sort of automated feel and maybe not even actually present whilst being next to the board. I could do this on a WebEx, and say if I had time constraints, I know that the presentation is only going to last that long.
Yeah, good. Yeah, lots of
Um,
reasons. Yeah, yeah,
and my other point was literally just to me keep on track with the actual presentation. Just
yeah.
because if I know that I have 15 seconds before the next slide, then um, it kind of lets me sort out what I need to say and when I need to say it.
Yeah, I think it's a really important point actually because you're right. It means you know in effect that you've got a time restriction or a time constraint, but that also means, as you kind of said, you will end up with a much more slick presentation than if you think, right, I need to waffle about this slide, so I'm going to take X amount of seconds to do the waffling. So yeah, I see what you're saying. It's a good point. Okay, so when you put the slideshow on, and I'm just going to do this so I can just see what I'm talking about. If I say from the current slide, now your slide has come into me, okay, which is all to do with transitions. Let's move it on. Animations on it as well.
I believe there are some animations on things like titles. Um,
Yes,
I think it's just very simple stuff where it kind of fades in.
I've got it. You're absolutely right. Okay, so can you tell me the difference between the transition and what's the point of the transition, and then what's the point of the animation?
Yeah. Again, like I feel like the transitions are kind of just another way for you to uh to uh to kind to kind of set one thing, and then if you have that pattern repeat, it kind of adds a sense of unification to like the whole presentation.
Good.
So like so the transition that like I've picked is basically a single cube, and each slide is one side of the cube, and the cube is constantly rotating.
Ooh, clever stuff. Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying. Yep.
And then I had some weird slides where obviously after you get past uh, six or so slides, then obviously you've kind of used up all the faces of the cube. So I ended up having to go back onto and basically reuse sides.
Okay.
Um, and Basically, I just think the point of that opposing to just having any old transition, so like having one where it fades out and then having one where it slides down or something like that. It's just another reason to it's like another thing that you can make to make the presentation look more unified from start to finish.
Yeah, yeah, because you're right. You could have them one bouncing this way, one bouncing that way, but if that was the case, what might it do as far as the audience is concerned, rather than your uniform way of doing it?
Um, I mean, it's kind of either going to kind of just draw their attention away from it.
Yeah.
It's going to make them kind of think about that and just think about, like, or maybe it's something that I know a lot of people don't really like when sort of things are not uniform, especially in that sort of situation. So it could make them think about that more than the presentation.
Yeah. It's a bit of a distraction, isn't it? I
Yeah.
think. I think you're right in what you're saying. Okay, so that's your transition. So what's an animation? What's the difference?
For me, the difference is a transition will be sort of like moving smoothly from one chapter to a next,
Yep.
and then an animation, or the way that I've used the animation in this sense, is to kind of highlight on what the audience should be concentrating on.
Mhm.
So I mean, in this presentation, I've kept it really simple and just sort of started with the titles to basically make the audience look at the titles of each slide.
Okay, yeah,
But
I can see that because I saw that when I'm just going to do it from the current slide. So the transition brings the slide in, and then the animation brings the text on the slide. Yeah.
yeah,
So I can see what you're saying there. So you're drawing my attention. The slide is there, and here's the title of what the slide is. That's what we're concentrating on. Yep, I can see
yeah.
that. Good. Okay. Come out of there. Right. So just a little bit more. Somewhere down here you've got. Oh, here we go. So we've got a pie chart. We've also got a hyperlink. Okay. Now, if you're putting a hyperlink or a link to anything within the presentation or a presentation, what must you be sure of? What must you make sure of, I should say?
I would make sure that the hyperlink goes to the right place,
Good.
and that you can actually use the hyperlink in the presentation.
Okay. So shall we give it a go? It's probably easier if I do what I want to do rather than you fighting the mouse. Let's do that.
Oh yeah, no, sure.
Okay, so I'm now going to click on your hyperlink, providing the internet decides not to be slow. Okay, so we've hyperlinked here to, or we will have hyperlinked here. There we go. Let's go into what you're looking for. Programming. Okay, so this is a YouTube about the Linux desktop, yeah? So
Yeah.
why is that relevant maybe in your current presentation? Why is it relevant?
Well, because in that section of the presentation, I believe that I was speaking about because the nature of the presentation was basically about installing Server 2012, which is a very specific OS
Yep.
with a very with not, I wouldn't want to say a specific purpose, but you know, it has
Yeah.
very specific sort of like a set of performance boundaries. And what I was basically just sort of like talking about with the OS spectrum is basically just sort of all the different types of operating systems, not just Windows, but the different types of manufacturers that make OSs, including Apple and Linux and Unix.
Okay, good. So again, if you're putting a hyperlink or a link there, you said you check that it works, check that it goes to where you want it to go to. But what else does it need to be?
It does need to be relevant to the actual presentation as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the final thing I want to just have a look at is you've mentioned copyright here. Tell me a little bit about copyright, and then just tell me why is it so relevant when you are creating presentations?
Well, the basics of copyright, my understanding of it is that the material is actually owned by the governing body, and it's basically like a patent to the point where you can't just take that information or content or software which is copyrighted, and you can't use it for your own means. This is usually when things require payment, such as like on this screen, it's kind of like all of Microsoft's software, and it's things that you can't, and it's things that like you don't actually own the software, you lease it, and once you have it on your computer at home, the copyright stops you, or it's meant to deter you from just making a second setup wizard and giving it to your friend.
Sure, absolutely right. And of course, when you install any of Microsoft's products, we have to have product keys and agree the copyright laws, don't we?
Yeah.
If you do go ahead and break them, because I notice you say you shouldn't do this, but let's be honest, people out there do it. Okay, if Microsoft caught somebody breaking the copyright laws, what could Microsoft do, and would they be within their rights to do it?
Well, Microsoft have the right to prosecute, and then they'll go to court, and what will basically happen is the value of the software or whatever sort of content has been copied, that basically gets weighed up, and usually what will happen is because when these things have been copied um, illegally, it's very hard to trace where or in what quantity it has been copied in. So like what you'll find is that like if someone's downloaded a song that was, it could have cost them like £2, they'll actually find a lot more than that because
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
um, the risk of that song now being in 200 different places, or if they put it onto a torrenting site, it could be on millions of home user PCs within weeks.
Yeah, absolutely right. Okay, brilliant. All right then, Rob. I think that concludes the evidence that we need for Unit 375. And I'm going to suggest that you upload this recording to All Learning Outcomes. Okay, so I'm going to
Okay.
stop the recording.